Hello, Farah. Thank you for coming to my channel.
Thank you for having me.
So you want to share your type, OP type, please?
Yeah, I'm double feminine, INTJ jumper, NIFI, sleep, consume, play, blast.
Right. So we're both IJs, and but you are a consume IJ, and I am a more typical blast IJ. And it's going to be really interesting to talk to you because you are a gamma also. We're not in the same quadra. And yeah, going to transition to some other quadras now to explore and see what I can learn from you guys, from your functions. But we share the NI-SE axis, and we could start there maybe. So tell me, first of all, I want to know about your journey into typology, and then I want to know like what did you think yourself, like what was your own kind of self-type or guess for yourself? Did you see the NI or not? So there are a lot of questions in there. You can start wherever you want to.
So I was introduced to OP through like my interest in human behavior. Um, so I was interested in that for like ever since I can remember because I struggled a little bit with like um, navigating interactions with others. So I would always search up like how do I respond when someone asks me this, or just in general, like how do I behave human basically. um and over the years, like first I got into astrology a little bit actually, just in the sense of like trying to understand like my own behaviors, and it didn't really make much sense to me, but like I enjoyed it like as a side, didn't take it as gospel, but at the same time it was just a fun little thing. And then over time I was like, okay, I need something a little bit more practical and realistic. And I was just searching up like different personalities, and I was introduced obviously to MBTI, just like majority of people. And yeah, I kind of like from there I found different, like, I guess, schools of thoughts. I read a little bit about socionics, didn't get too deep into it as much as I'd like to. I'm trying to read into it a little bit more right now. um, and then I found OP online, and it took me about 2 years after I found them to actually join the class, just until I understood the functions and stuff. And I think it was last year during like the pandemic, or a little bit more than last year, um, where I was going through a bit of a harder moment, and I wanted to understand like why do certain things keep repeating for me. And I thought it'd be a good idea to delve a little bit deeper.
That's interesting. Yeah, we do keep repeating some patterns, some cycles, and they seem to be very hard to break free from. So in terms of those things, did you find any answers? Like, we will get into that during the conversation, but just like a simple answer in the beginning.
Yeah, I because I had an idea of like where I was like constantly fucking up a little bit, but I didn't know 100% if I was just like imagining it, or if I was like, because I kept putting things aside. Like I was like, okay, I'll figure it out later. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm doing this literally everywhere.
Mm.
Part of it is just like overthinking things and just not actually implementing the ideas that I have. Like I'll have a lot of ideas, but I just don't go through with them because I have a hard time implementing things. So even at jobs, like I reach burnout very quick. So that was another issue for me, because I was like, okay, I'm trying my best to maintain something, but I feel like exhausted. Like it's just, I think, realizing that certain positions are not for me, and like trying to navigate that as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so it was basically for the most part that, as well as just like choosing my own personal path and not like um just trying to go along with what is expected of me was a big one, because that is very draining for me, and I kept doing that for a very long time. And over time it just kind of like, eventually you just have to change paths.
Yeah, like some sort of implosion happening on the inside. Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. It seems like a lot of people look into typology and yeah, things like that to find a framework to help themselves get out of certain patterns or to understand themselves better or, you know, break free from whatever, as you mentioned as well, maybe outside pressure. Um, so when you learned about your type, yeah, about the self type, did you have a guess before you got the type? Like, what did you think you were?
I had a couple, but it was more like my what I was certain of was um intuitive savior, um DI, and blast last. Those were the ones I was like, okay, I know for sure it's this.
Mm,
But other than that, I was kind of like, I could be like literally INTP or ENTP or even ENFP. And I was just kind of going everywhere. But I knew I was blast last. I have a hard time with that. Like that was just, it was, I don't know. I think I just kind of doubted that I would be a glass lizard. So I
mhm,
was like, I don't think I'm a glass lizard. So I want to say NI, but also like if I'm NI, I'm likely a blaster, or like the typical NIs, like usually a blaster, like if it's savior.
mhm.
But I knew it was observer.
Yeah. So
I
how
do,
did you know that about the observer?
um, because I'm an over planner. I'm obsessed with like my path in life,
Mm,
and that's kind of been my obsession since childhood, and it's very obvious to me. Like it's like I could see it. It's just something I've been dealing with since forever. Like I could like I'll have issues with people, obviously, just like everyone else, but it's more like or with identity and stuff. Like it's still gonna be it still plays a role in my life, but it's not like I could stand back and just kind of be like, okay, I see your perspective, I see my perspective, and just kind of like double decide. And that was just like something that I was very aware of.
mm.
Um,
Right. So you were never like stuck in the whole people issue thing for like ever. You finally got yourself out of those situations.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting one. Yeah, because OP is a very different, I think, at least in many ways, in terms of the coins, because I've never, known about the coins before. You just had this stereotype of one of the 16 types. And yeah, now we know that there are 32 variations of the same type, which means that the coins are so important, like in what order do we have them, and the activation and so forth, the feminine, the masculine.
Yeah.
But you saw your intuition, and how did you see it? Like, or did you see a void in the sensory? Like, why did you know?
I leave a lot of voids. When I'm talking to people, I'm constantly being told that I talk gibberish. So like it's me trying to constantly making myself a little bit more clearer, and that's something I've worked on like consciously.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally to me. So like when I'm talking to people, it's I think um I try to take whatever like come like is in my mind, and I just try to kind of blurt it out, and I just forget that in reality it's not the exact. Okay, I'm trying to explain this a little bit better. um, like I'll have like um, a general idea of what I'm trying to say, and then when I go to say it, it doesn't come out as like very coherent. Um, and it was like even with my own family, like a lot of times they'll tell me like we don't understand what you're trying to say. You're saying words, but that's all.
Yeah.
It's just words. So I was like, hey, if it's sensory, then I'm doing a very bad job at sensory. Like very, very
Yeah.
um yeah.
Not sensory clarity. So that's something we have in common. We both share the NF temperament, and I can absolutely relate to what you're saying too. Like there are words, but or in the best case scenario, there are words, uh, but they
Yeah.
don't necessarily make sense. And it's really frustrating the way you describe it. Like we have a clear idea of what we want to say. Like you feel it so strongly in the intuition, like this is the idea, this is the general thing I want to convey. And I think my mistake usually is that I don't want to, take them along and give them the steps on the way to the conclusion, but I just want to give them the conclusion and hope that they can, understand the way to the conclusion on their own, regardless of what functions they have. And so then, because also, as an energy dom, you don't want to waste a lot of energy, even if I'm blessed. So I just want to give them the point, and then they can work from there, and finally they will understand. It doesn't work that way, but I think that's my approach. Can you relate to that?
I I take along a little bit too much. Maybe that's the consume in me.
Yeah.
Like it's raining and sometimes I'm just like I don't want to talk anymore, but like I have to explain certain things and then I keep talking, I take them along the whole process. Like it's very frustrating sometimes. Like I'll spend instead of taking 5 minutes to explain something, I take like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I never get to the point. And that's
Interesting.
I'm never getting to the point.
Yeah, because then you are giving the consumer report when you are actually taking people along all the
Yeah.
way. But you also have the NI, so the point is really important, right?
That's my issue because I'm trying to get to it and I'm trying to explain it. And it's just like if someone doesn't see the vision that I see, then it's like, no, but let me go backtrack again and repeat the whole thing. And
Yeah.
it's very frustrating because I'm like, I see it for myself, but I don't know how to explain it to you.
Mm.
I try to explain my own process and my process just doesn't make sense to them because they're processing it very different and just kind of and then it's just like I just feel stuck because I'm like I don't know what to say anymore.
What do you do then? Like if there is something you really need to communicate and you feel frustrated because you can't,
It
make
depends.
them understand. Yeah.
I either repeat it. I have a tendency to repeat my bullshit multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it takes just as long every single time. So it's like at some point, like now I'm learning to kind of just let it go and just be like, okay, you know what, you don't get it. That's fine. I get it. Let's leave it. But it's really hard for me because I'm just like, no, no, no. I have to repeat to you. And um, yeah, I'm constantly just trying to force people to listen to everything I say. And it's agitating and I know it is. So
Mm-hmm.
like, like even my friends, I'm like, listen, stop me when you need to stop me. It's fine.
Yeah.
um, yeah.
That's so interesting. Like the thing you're using or saying now, like force people to understand. Like, I don't know. I have a hard time relating to that. Like, uh, I really feel that I can't do that. I wish I could
Yeah.
more, at least, because it's good to be a little bit assertive. And I don't know if it's like a thing on the TEFI axis versus the FETI. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it right now. Because the FE will always, consider like, how is it received? Like, do we still have a good vibe here? You're NF, so you're also obligated to the vibe, right? But it feels like the TE has a little bit of authority to kind of move forward, regardless of, the FE vibes.
Yeah.
I, I don't know if that's too abstract, but yeah, something like that.
I think I see it as well. I think someone mentioned maybe it's also because of because I'm also an eldest sibling, so even though my TE is very low, I
Mm-hmm.
had to quite often. Um, so I do sometimes feel the need to assert myself, but I have a hard time doing it. So it's something I actively do. It's not something I do naturally, but it's something that sometimes I feel the need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I'll still check in with like everyone, make sure everyone's okay. Like if it exceeds a certain like threshold where I'm like, okay, maybe this is crossing some lines um on an emotional level, I'm kind of like, okay, let me just back off and we could talk about it later. We don't have to finish the conversation now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We need to finish the conversation at some point. Like I'm very big on that. Like we need to talk about it, but it doesn't have to be right now if like it's kind of throwing off everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you are very aware of the vibe there and respectful of it. But you will return to the thing, maybe.
Yes, if it depends on the person. Like if it's someone I'm seeing is able to receive it, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, Usually I surround with people that I can be blunt with because I'm generally a very blunt person. I have a hard time just kind of like walking on eggshells. I'll do it if it's someone that I don't really care for, or if it's like an acquaintance. I'll just
Mm-hmm.
like things go and I'm like, oh, whatever, it's not that serious. But if it's someone that's dear to me, I feel that like because there's a vibe in the moment and there's a vibe, an overall vibe. Like I don't want resentment to build up,
Mm-hmm.
um, whether from me or from them. And like you could generally see what a person is like experiencing. Like you could read their face if that makes sense. Like how the I guess the aura in the room kind of just shifts at times.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to take care of that, you really need to address the issue, like whether even if it's later, um, and because whether they realize it or not, like eventually it's gonna build up, right? So I make a point to be like, listen, I recognize there's an issue. We could talk about it later, but we need
Mm-hmm.
to talk about it eventually. Um, if it's someone who's just passing by, like just ignore it. It's not that serious. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Depends on how close you are. Wow. Very interesting. I want to go back a little bit before that to before, working more on these thoughts, but about you and your type, because we're kind of deep diving into NI land right away and talking about concepts. And I know that you've been on the Kendrick interview as well. So maybe people want to know you more like basic stuff, they can go there. Um, because our conversation will more likely be more in maybe depth about functions and details. But yeah, so just wanted to say that when I was interviewing you in the beginning, because I had this off record kind of interview just for a little typing group, I think I really had a feeling that you had some sort of intuition. Like I felt that connection with you. But it's so interesting with you because you have the double activated sensory, like the double activated OE. So you felt very ESFP like as well. But then I thought you looked exactly like one in the community who has your type. So it's interesting. I think in the Myers-Briggs, maybe you would go like maybe people would type you ESFP, I don't know, just like from the initial vibe if they don't know you. I'd like to know a little bit more about your consume, which is double activated. What does it look like? And also your play, like how do you use your SE, even though SE is last in your stack, in your grand stack, you still have it activated as your second and your third animal. Um, how does SE work for you? Like how does consume look for you? Yeah, feel free to say whatever. Maybe
yeah.
it's
And I'm just gonna describe like what I view as like consume for myself and like where I find I overdo certain things.
yeah.
Um, so I am a reader. I've always been a reader.
Mm,
Um, I like in terms of like by reader, I mean like I read literally everything. When I was a kid, I used if I go into the bathroom and I see like a shampoo bottle, I'll sit down and I'll read the whole shampoo bottle, and then I have to like if you like flip the page in the shampoo bottle, like it's unnecessary, but I'm still reading it. Like I need
mm,
to read the whole thing. I read all the Harry Potter books because that was like my childhood when I was growing up, and I read them like I don't know how many times. I've reread them multiple times.
mm,
But I had a habit of like if I felt I skipped a word, I'll have to go back and reread the entire sentence and like it takes me longer because I'm just like making sure I read everything. So it's to an obsessive degree. I read like I spent my time reading as a kid. Like I just found a bunch of books and I would just read. And
mm,
it was mostly fantasy based. That was my go-to. Recently I've switched up, like I've been trying to get more into like um philosophy and stuff. Like that's kind of anything that's more abstract. I think that's where I kind of gear more towards.
mm.
I, in terms of like things I watch, I'll watch a lot of like crime shows or documentaries. Um, I read a lot of articles online. Like I'll just find random articles and start reading them. Um, Food, I have the same thing with food. Like I like to well, recently I've kind of like controlled it a little bit, where I used to like um my eating time is a huge deal, because like now I'm consuming food, so I have to actually sit down and focus and know what I'm consuming, and it's like a pretty big deal for me.
Mm.
um, my if talking about like external sensory world, like I have um really bad coordination skills. I think I mentioned that before. But I'm obsessed with like uh doing things in the right way. So like I really wanted to join martial arts, so I joined like um it's like a martial arts feel, like for like at a sorry, it's a gym class with a mixed martial arts feel. It's called body combat.
Mm.
uh, and I do that religiously every single week for a couple of years now. um, and it just helps with my coordination skills. And it's just like because growing up I just had zero coordination. Like I obsessed about it and I really wanted to join things, but I
Mm.
couldn't because of external factors and also my lack of coordination. um, yeah, so that's like a general, I guess, what I view as like potentially like maybe playing a role with that, but those fun.
Yeah. So you'd say that the variety is it's pretty like scattered. Like you do consume a lot of different stuff. Like yeah, you don't have a couple of major, you know.
I have some more specific things. Like it's some things are, I guess, in I think how they describe SEs, sometimes some things are better than others, like in the sensory.
Mm.
Um, I do have certain things where I hyper focus on, and then other things that I kind of just generally focus on, and just kind of like shuffling through it is what I do on a day to day.
Right. Yeah, because I'm really trying to understand what the animals are doing, and I'm not sure if consume is all about taking in. I think it's also, I know, I mean, it's been talked of a lot in the community, and I'm sure by Dave and Shan, that it's about updating, and maybe more so than taking in new in the sense of maybe learning, but more making changes. Like when you take in new for self, you are also um, looking at that self in a mirror, in a different mirror, and adjusting self to the new, in line with the new. And I think that is the difference, the real difference between not having consume and having, because the updating will not be until it's really, really, really needed, like badly, if you are a consume demon like myself. While for a savior, they will be kind of used to doing this updating. And of course, it has something to do with the taking in, because if you don't take in, of course, you can't, update accordingly. But I don't think it's just that. I think it's more. It's because I can relate to what you're saying about reading, and even though maybe for me it's been more in certain areas, not as much, scattered. What do you think about the updating part? Do you feel that you do change a lot, that you're not the same person you were a year ago or 2 years ago?
It's funny because like I think that's kind of my like where I started with OP when I mentioned that like I constantly searched up about human behavior and like trying to understand like how to like externally be human, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, it was constantly me like, I guess, sometimes imitating others with their behaviors and trying to update my own person, like to kind of match that so I can kind of communicate to everyone in a different way that would work. Um, I don't know if that makes any sense, but even when it came to like ideologies and trying to like find meaning in life, it was constantly me like grabbing on from different areas and trying to see if that's something that makes sense to me.
Mm.
Um, And it was really difficult, especially like when you come from a more restrictive background, where it's like, you know, you're supposed to follow a certain path um, that works like on a societal scale within your community, um, and trying to like kind of um, branch outside of that where it's not accepted. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, so that was something that I did a lot. Like even when I did online schooling in high school for about a year and a
mhm,
half, and that gave me access to the internet. So I kind of just um, gathered whatever meaning I could find through the internet, because like I finally had access to it, and that's kind of where I started updating
mm,
for the most. Like I started allowing myself to break certain rules. It took a very long time, but like just recognizing that rules are only like, uh, and rules I mean like as like I'm using that word very loosely. Like for me, rules are more internal than anything. So just kind of like breaking away from those rules and seeing that the consequences are not exactly what you think they are in your mind. Like they're not as large. They're not as scary.
mm.
Sometimes there are no real consequences, depending on the thing. Um, and yeah, just changing in accordance to that, like just seeing where um, some things don't actually work for you and do need an upgrade, and do need change in certain areas, even if you're afraid of it, and like going along with that.
Right. Yeah. So before you had access to the internet, how old were you, by the way, at the time? Teenager or?
I was 14, 14.
Right. Yeah. So before that, like how did you go about updating? Did you update, and how did you find your information or your, yeah, source for that?
Sure. I only really had I had very limited access to information, so I would try to read newspapers.
Mm,
Um, I would read, which is like not really information. It was just kind of like very
mm,
general. I didn't really watch too much TV just because we had like limited access to what we were able to watch. So I watched a lot of like National Geographic or a lot of crime shows, which I guess like a lot of it was very much focused on like the human mind and stuff. So for me, it was just kind of like trying to understand like I guess like someone's path in life and how it leads them to act in a certain way, and trying to like bring it back to myself and see like, okay, if this happens and I respond in this way, that means like for this individual, like they will respond in this way due to things that happen to them. And it was just kind of like a lot of like that kind of stuff.
mm,
um and yeah, talking to the closest person to me at the time was my dad. So like I would ask him questions, and he has like a certain view of the world. So like whatever information I got was like a lot of it was a regurgitation of like whatever he told me. So it
mm,
was, yeah, I think over time it was just kind of like moving away from that and just recognizing that I could, I guess with the internet, like you can get information from elsewhere. I just didn't have
mm,
access to elsewhere at the time.
mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
or ask others and stuff. Ask
Must have been like discovering a gold mine for you, especially being so high in consume as you are.
yes, it was the Forbidden Garden. That's how I describe it. It was,
Mm, amazing. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And I hear you talk about understanding human mind. I'm thinking, is that an NI thing, an NF thing in particular, or is it just a general thing for humans? It seems like some people are more interested in the mechanics of, whatever, a car or a motorbike or something more practical, and some people are more people oriented. Um, yeah, just thinking about that as we are talking, I have this problem because when I'm consuming what you were saying, I have to kind of see how that works in my own sleep box, what relates. Yeah, do you see that? Because thinking of like just the OP system that started with Dave and Shan, but especially Dave maybe at first with the NI, the NF, just the NIFI you have as well. Like it seems like a thing, you know.
Mhm.
And of course, we all want to understand each other. Anyways, let's let's move on from this. I can process it on my own later. Yeah, I was thinking of when you said about stopping at like if there was a word that you didn't read properly, you had to go back. You stopped and you had to go back and you had to reread everything. I was just thinking, is that like, can you explain why?
Um, for me, it just felt like I wasn't getting in all the information. Like even if it was just a single word, I was missing something, you
Mhm.
know, like it doesn't make sense, like speaking it out loud, but I always felt like in order to get the actual information, I had to read it properly, you know, like I wasn't allowed to skip anything because
Mm.
then I'm not really taking it really in. Like I was cheating in a way. Um,
Interesting.
it
Yeah.
made it hard school because I was like, instead of just scanning through everything, I was reading everything and highlighting everything. I'm that meme where like the whole book is highlighted. That's basically
Y-
what I did.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
it,
Yeah. Go on.
no, it was just like that I overdo.
That's so
um,
interesting because I suspect that's just a guess at this point. I suspect that has something to do with sleep over consume.
okay.
It feels like the consume, like consume first or oversleep at least. It seems like they are okay with scanning through things differently, you know, and they're not as obligated to, you know, as you said, you highlighted everything, kind of organize it, organize the information, put it into a bigger context, make sure you have understood all of it thoroughly, like down to the last letter
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah.
Like it feels like a sleep over consume thing. Yeah, I'm here processing again. Do you think so, or because you're a
Poss-
sleep saver?
Possibly, I would like I really needed to go through everything. It was a big deal for me. But what that did was sometimes it meant putting things off because it
Mm-hmm.
did take a lot of because if I
Yeah.
was doing that, I was hyper-fixating on it, and it was taking a really long fucking time. Like it never was
Mm.
just like just going through the thing. It was like I have to actually make time to do this because it's gonna take a lot of time. And then when I do it, it's instead of again something that could take let's say an hour, it's taking a couple of days.
Mm.
Um, and I found that even with like things like um if I was I had a thing for drawing and coloring and that kind of stuff, and I get very particular about the colors or like the thing and trying to make it 100% perfect, and if it's not perfect it's garbage, and it was like it would look really good, but for me it's like it's not 100%. It was just something about like a bit of a perfectionist, so like
Mm.
it kind of like manifested in multiple areas. So it was like that with reading, with drawing, with eating, with like it just yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of scattered everywhere.
Okay. Okay. So it's more a general perfectionist thing, maybe in your case.
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So moving on from there to the all or nothing approach, because you have masculine and I, right? So we are both single observers, and your first observer is masculine. So it's really strong, right? And so, how, for example, because as an observer, single observer, if we get stuck, it's really hard for us to get unstuck. Like, how do you do that having masculine and I? Say you have some obsession or something that you are really, really you're aware of, you need to kind of adjust this. But yeah, how do you go about it?
So this has been my I guess my Achilles heel, I guess, in a way.
It
Um
is for both of us. Yeah.
it's been really tough because for me if I'm doing something, I have to see it through. But then if I see that it's not working anymore, the only way to get myself out of it, because sometimes it's like I have to see it through, even though I know it's not working. Like I'm just like, obsessing about like seeing it through. At some point it loses meaning. But it's still, the meaning for me is that it once had meaning. Like it
Mm,
just it becomes very like diluted, I guess. Um uh my approach to it is just going cold turkey the other way. Um and I did that with like almost everything in my life, which is something I really need to work on, just finding a balance. I always mention I did paint my whole room gray, and everything in my room is gray because I am trying to live gray in a way, like stop going so black and white.
oh,
Physical manifestation of what's in my mind.
cool.
Um,
Yeah.
it's weird. But yeah, I did that with like I don't know, whether it's like my eating habits or um my my life journey in general. Like I just kind of uh go the other route, because if I don't do that like immediate spark,
Mm,
it's not something that sticks, because it's like if I'm gonna do something I have to be all in on it. Otherwise it's not that important. So yeah, I'm very black and white with things. Like if I'm doing this and I have to do it 100%. So right now what I'm trying to do, and it's not my natural way of doing things, is just
mm,
allowing things to be, and just recognizing that sometimes it is what it is and it's not going to be 100%, and that's okay.
yeah.
And that's really difficult for me. So recently I've actually deleted most of my trackers. I had like time trackers everywhere. They work to an extent. Like my alarms work really great just to kind of help me get moving. But things like step trackers or food trackers or whatever, I had to get rid of because I became very obsessive with them. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like allowing myself to make mistakes sometimes
Mm,
and not feel like I am um, creating some kind of catastrophe that doesn't really exist, you know?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you did walk like 600 steps like less today than yesterday, that wouldn't be a catastrophe, really.
It was literally at one point doing 15 to 20,000 steps a day, and sometimes just on the spot, because I needed to reach the number. The number
Mm,
was such a numbers is an issue for me.
mm-hmm,
Um, I was like obsessing over numbers, and if I didn't reach that, then like I wasn't sleeping at night. I was just thinking about that number, and it doesn't make sense. Like logically, it doesn't make any sense.
mm,
Um, but for me, I put some kind of meaning towards like reaching that goal, and if I didn't, um, it was a bit of a problem. So what I did was I let go of my my watch, like I took it off.
mm,
I'd delete the apps, and yeah, it was, and now like I'm still, the time is still like an issue for me, but like it's still a lot less of like a loud sound in my mind, because now I'm kind of like, okay, a minute late is not going to kill me.
mm-hmm.
um a minute early might, but like a minute late is not gonna kill me. um yeah, it's just like not being so obsessive, I guess.
Right.
I still have a long way to go. It's not anywhere near perfect, but nothing is, I guess.
Yeah, I guess like with NI, it's interesting because you have that superpower as well to the max. I mean, you have the masculine version, so you can, envision things like far, far away and kind of reach those. Um, yeah, it's interesting. While it can, of course, be, you know, also the opposite. Um, I was thinking of the cold turkey thing, like the black or white thing, and now you're trying to become more gray. I think that also is quite symptomatic for us single observers. Like we go all in on one side, and then we have to kind of counteract it with the other observer, the one we have at the bottom. So it's quite normal too. And I think you're going about it in a very balanced way, just to be able to, see what happens erase the trackers and be more chill, quote unquote, planned chill. It's awesome. Yeah, good job. So you
And
said
I,
you
sorry.
were, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the masculine and I do find that I do position myself in certain areas sometimes because I want to see where the um where each step would take. Like if I
Mm,
position myself here, what could that potentially cause down the line? And then I'll like consciously position myself in certain areas. It's like the whole analogy, like it's way overused, but that's pretty much what my whole life has been. Just constantly repositioning and seeing how that the butterfly effect basically
yeah,
what the outcome would be. And if it's something that I'd already envisioned, I guess. But and a lot of times it kind of is. And when I'm off, it's kind of like, oh wow, like that was not expected, like I guess something
right.
came in the way of that scheme. But generally it's a very interesting little thing where it's like if I um how would my action result in that consequence,
Mm,
whether good or bad.
yeah, it can be helpful, I suppose. I do that too, to some extent. But I also found that I kind of miss out of the moment when I do that. I mean, I do it by default, of course, but still, because it's very hard to be present if you're always looking at the next move and the next and the next after that, and how they are all kind of affecting each other. And you are like on this journey, but you're never taking a break to actually have a look at the view and enjoy it all and take it in.
Yeah.
That's what I feel, um, where I'm missing out. Yeah. Do you feel that when you do that chess thing in your life, do you feel that mm, that I mean, just NI in general, people are talking about predictions, predicting things, and so forth. Do you feel that it's very reliable, or do you have to change your plans a lot or rearrange? I mean, life is dynamic, right? So it will, everything is movable. But how well do you think that you can see these steps in the future?
It's reliable in the sense that, again, as a savior, like it's kind of like something that I kind of fall on regardless of whether it works or not.
Mm,
I think I did mention if it's like a second or a third function, sometimes it works a little bit better than the first because
mhm,
I go all in on it sometimes. Like I'm just like, nope, this is what's gonna happen and I'm gonna go this way. And it's kind of what kind of fucks up your life sometimes, right?
mhm,
Um, Even if it's like my natural state of being. Um, yeah, I find that I do lose track of time sometimes because of it, because like I'm so focused on like creating this thing that it's just like, oh, I completely missed out on your wedding or you're this or you're that, because I'm not really in the moment. I'm just
yeah.
in love, right? Um, and yeah, it's an odd thing where it's like constantly focusing on um what's happening in your mind and forgetting that there's a world happening around you. That's how I view it. And that's like, even like when I'm out in public, I don't know if this has anything to do with NI, but like I have a hard time like actually being in public. So I'll have headphones on, which is another reason why I had headphones on in the beginning. Like for me, headphones are a comfort. They're not
Mm,
so much like, not necessarily that I have anything on. It's just I need headphones in my ears because it kind of like it's a bit of a block between, like, even if I am outside, at least there's a block between me and the external world. Um, and it helps me kind of like navigate my surroundings a little bit. But if I do blast music, it's or like anything really in my ears, I'm forgetting that, like, if I'm in a parking lot, maybe don't keep both headphones on and just like, have an understanding of, I don't do that. I
mm,
just come on and I'm just like, I don't want to be aware, on top of the fact that I'm already lack social or sorry, spatial awareness. Like it's added on top of that because it's uncomfortable for me. So I don't know if that really answered anything, but like, yeah,
I
pretty
like
much.
what you're saying. Yeah. It's kind of, yeah, spacing out, like you have your headphones. I do that too quite a bit, actually. I haven't really been thinking about it that way. But yeah, I guess that's what's happening too. I have the masculine sensory, however, even if it's last. So I also want to, unplug and just be aware of what's going on around me, because the masculine functions are so strong, even if they are demons. So even if I'm really crappy at my demons, I still can't ignore them fully.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to some extent, I can relate to what you're saying. Yeah. What was I thinking about? The FI should be your strongest, like your forte, right? Because it's second.
Yeah, which is something like I see, but I also was like kind of because I saw DI. I just wasn't sure if it was FI or TI.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know like how that I know how it manifests, but I don't know how to put it in words. Um, like I like in terms of like value for me it was very much based on my path in life, like the um I guess I'm trying to let me just try to put this in words. Um, like I guess following a certain way of being, I guess, like whether it was uh, religion or otherwise, for me that was where my values came from. And I think uh, over time navigating other values like my own personal values was a little bit harder because I was trying to like understand like are these values internal or external.
Mm.
um I think one thing that was consistent for me and I realized over time was just the whole being honest about myself, not just to myself but also externally, which is why I kind of like I had to it took me many years to process it, because I was like, okay, I need to make sure this is exactly who I am and I can't pretend to be otherwise. Like I can't perform for the sake of performing. I have to be exactly who I am. um I am assuming that would be my masculine FI, like at
Yeah.
play in some way. Um, because it did cause a lot of chaos for me because it was like, huge shifts. Not so much for me because like I was aware of it, but it was a shift externally.
Mm.
'Cause it was like, okay, now you're someone else. And it's like, no, I've always been me. It just took me a very long time to present it.
Yeah.
So
And also being blast last, you were not really obligated to share with the tribe.
my
So.
friends, my close friends always knew how I am. Like I'm always sharing with my close friends, but they're also
Mm.
like, you know, very, very, very close to me. Because I'm just kind of like in a constant state of like, let me tell you my thoughts. And I'm just constantly like just talking about it, which I don't know if that would be my play, but yeah, I'm constantly sharing with my friends like what I'm thinking.
Mm.
Um, but it's not everyone. Recently, I've been trying to share it with like, I guess on social media, like things that I'm comfortable sharing. Like I'll
Mm.
share random stuff, and it's just working on like um, being a little bit more loud, I guess. Um,
Right.
yeah,
Do you have a channel or Instagram or something you want to share down below in the description? I could put it there after if you want to.
it's nothing like big. I well, my own personal social media is personal. Like my
Yeah.
Instagram is more personal, but I do write poetry, which is like it's
Mm.
not great. I have an Instagram account. I post like maybe once a year. Um, it's funny.
Sounds solid. Once a year, it's regular.
Yeah, it's at Musings Unrestrained on Instagram. But
Mm.
again, nothing great. Like it's just, you know.
Yeah, but still you're sharing, and whenever you feel like it. Yeah, I think that's interesting what you're saying. Like you were, because you are asleep first, so you were processing your own identity and narrowing it down, I suppose, like doing that job on your own. You didn't have to invite anyone to that process. That's just you doing you, like fully. And then when you are solid, when you have your NF, your NF of you clear to yourself, then you will just do your thing. You don't have to invite people during you are processing, like for the journey.
Yeah, I find I kind of bulldoze through everyone else's opinion in a way.
Mm, yeah.
Um, like to an insane degree, because it was kind of like, oh, you were so quiet, what happened?
Mm,
um, and it was just me going like, I'm not tolerating certain things anymore, and I'm gonna just do things my way. And it was just like a complete just, this is me, and honestly at this point I don't care if you accept it. um, i'm I'm just not willing to not accept myself, or present in a certain way. So it was just like I
mm,
go very all in on like, um, not just the path, but like being just genuinely me, regardless of the impacts that it has, because it was constantly like pushed down. I guess maybe that's the femininity a little bit, where I was like kind of going with the flow a little bit.
mm,
Again, that animal has to come out sometime, right? Like
right.
you don't be caged for so long.
Yeah. And your first animal is actually masculine too. So when you shared it with the world, it was like the most solid ever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's super interesting.
I always
Yeah.
still always willing to update. Like if there's something new that comes along and I'm like, okay, no, this makes sense.
Mhm,
I'm as long as it's something that makes sense. Like I'm not gonna do something for the sake of someone else told me to do it. I have to feel like it makes sense to me.
mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting because with FI versus like your axis versus my decider axis, it feels like, I don't know how it is for TIs because I'm not TI, I'm FE, but I'm just thinking like for the FIs, I can see that they are not going to align if they are not aligning. It's not, they're not going to fake it. Um, Maybe TE wise, dancing along for a while like you did, but in the end of the day, um, they will not.
Yeah, and it also like kind of it's the same thing with like if someone asks my opinion about something,
Mhm,
I can be a little bit more on the blunt side. Um, Even with my friends, it was very much just like, if you're asking my opinion, I can't lie to you. Like I'm not gonna tell you something that I don't see is true.
mm,
Um, and like even when it comes to, I guess, like relationships or whatever, I would like tell them that, listen, I'm gonna give you my perspective on things, um, and I'm not gonna just like try to tell you what you want to hear. You know,
mhm,
like if having like questions about the relationships, or like just a general observation that they've had about their relationships, I will tell them like, okay, look, this is the perspective I see.
mhm,
And just be like, oh, you know, like validate your emotion. It's a bit harder for me because I'm like, as a friend, I feel the need to be completely honest with you,
mm,
because I care for you. And if I'm not going to be honest, then there's like really no room for growth. Um, yeah, maybe that's the difference between FI and FE. I'm not really sure, but like I'm not gonna go along with like, you know, how do you feel?
mm,
I'm like, I'll care for you as someone I care for. I will empathize with you and everything. It's got nothing to do with that, but like at the end of the day, I'm more obligated to be honest with what I'm seeing.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think for us, it's more a question of making things work. It doesn't have to be ideal. I think that's the huge difference with the FI. It always needs to be ideal, you know. Like this is my value, like this is what I love. With TIs, like I can find different ways of something to work for me. And yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of making this up, so I don't know if it's true, but that's what I have felt and observed myself. And I'd love to hear other, TIs, FIs, whoever share their experiences. Because I can see, for example, maybe you've watched Benjamin Sadik's channel, and I can see how he's searching for and trying to understand what is FI, like what is FI really doing? Because it's such a strange function from our decider axis, like trying to understand it. It's very foreign somehow. I guess as maybe FE is also very foreign, like, yeah, it feels very strange, I think, for FI users. And yeah, I think
It's
there
very,
are very negative words for it too that I have heard.
you know what, like I actually, before like really delving deep into it, I really did think I had FE somewhere.
Yeah.
But
Why did you
yeah,
think that? Like, what made you think that?
I'm very movable, but I guess that's my feminine TE.
TE,
Like I'm
yeah.
very, very kind of translated, I guess it was the DE component of it, like just seeing feminine DE in general. Like for me,
Mm,
I thought I was just, oh, I'm just kind of working with everyone and, vibing with everyone. And it's like, I'm not really sure if that's the case, but that's
mm,
how I translated it. And I really did think that, because I'm always checking in, like if it's my friends and I guess they're in my FI box, like I'm always like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. Like I'm very big on like checking in, like, how are you doing?
mm,
But only with a certain group of people. And like, it's not, yeah, I don't know. I guess like I mistranslated
mm.
my feeling function.
Yeah, it's interesting because I get the feeling that um, with FE, it's more like the vibe has to work for the tribe, you know? And so I can make it work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the important part is that, it works vibe wise for the tribe, you know? So I can deviate, I can be flexible. With FI, I feel it's just the other way around somehow. They will make things work for everyone, with a
Yeah.
T.
Yeah.
But with the vibe, they are always more obligated to themselves than to the tribe. Yeah.
I always check in on myself first before I check in with everyone. Like, am
Yeah.
I able to respond to you? Am I able to do this? Am I able to do that? And then I'll do the thing. Like it comes secondary to my own comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do view it as like, again, putting the mask on yourself first.
Yeah.
Um, I have been in moments where I kind of like felt very burnt out because I was like constantly jumping from one place to another.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's training, it's not fun and I don't do a good job. And then I have a full internal meltdown
Yeah.
and it's not fun. So I've learned that, it's best just to kind of like, maybe I could text you tomorrow. I don't have to text you right now. Like, sure, you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing great, but like also I'm not doing great either. So I'm not really going to be of any benefits to you. So I kind of go with things like that a little now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm just kind of processing. This is a very inefficient interview because I'm doing a lot of sleep processing. But yeah, I love this tempo that we have. Yeah, what was I thinking about the whole TE? Because I feel when the TEs look at the TIs, they are like, oh yeah, sure, maybe that thing is working for you, but it's super inefficient in the tribe. Like, let's make a better solution that, works here and now, like in reality. So, and they are right. I mean, it's true. It's more efficient for the moment, at least, even if it's not aligning with, our stacking that we have made for ourselves over time.
Yeah.
And I guess it's maybe the other way around with FE also, like we are just trying to, look at what works in the long run. Like, where do we all have to move? Which would be like a violation of FI. You don't move FI. That's just a no-no.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other way around is also true. Like moving TIs, it's very painful,
Yeah, I think like you don't necessarily have to like something for you to do it. You could acknowledge that you don't like something, um, and also do it because it works. That's how I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm very big on that. Like even within my own family dynamic, there are certain things where I'm like, you don't have to like it. Like I don't have to like it, and I'm not
Mm.
gonna pretend to like it. I'm just gonna,
Do it anyways.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you're also, let's say, if I'm talking specifically about family, you're in a family dynamic and you do play a role.
Mm.
Um, I'll be loud about it. Like I'm not
Yeah.
gonna agree with it, but I'm still gonna do it
Right. Yeah.
because
Unless
unless
it's crossing a
the
line, like a core value, because then you can't. Right. Yeah, that's the same for me too. Like there are certain values and I won't budge. No.
yeah, I'm not gonna pretend.
Mhm.
That's my, like I'm not gonna fake it.
Yeah. So you're gonna go along and be grumpy, basically.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but you'll
I
still do it.
I'll do it, but I'm just not gonna like. I'll be huffing and puffing the whole time.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
um, Even if I'm at a place and there's someone have like I have a hard time like putting on a face. Like I'll be able to do it to a certain degree, but
Mhm.
if there's someone I just don't connect with,
Mhm.
I have a hard time talking. Like I just like I can be civil with people as a whole,
Mhm.
and communicate great and everything. Like I'm not going to be rude about it. But if there's someone I have a bit of strife with, um, they're not going to get too much out of me. Like I
Right.
go into like a quieter mode. Like I could talk. Like it's not an issue of talking, but it's like don't if I don't want to vibe with you, then I'm not gonna. Like I'm
Mm.
just not I care about like making sure everyone's comfortable because I'm like fuck,
That's not your job in the tribe.
it's not my job. Like if I dislike you, if I don't care, then I don't care and I'll just move along. But if I dislike you, then
Yeah.
yeah, um, it'll be very evident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's so cool that we have all 8 functions in the tribe. And I think it's not a question of fighting each other's functions or even our own demon functions. I think it's a question of trying to make them work together, like becoming an alpha humanity would be the goal, like from an FE, NIFE perspective at least. Make everything, optimized and efficient together.
Yeah,
But yeah, it would take a lot of maturity on every single individual's, own part. So we would have to be alphas ourselves first before we can become an alpha humanity.
I view it as like owning your own bullshit,
Mhm.
recognizing where your own where you have like certain, I guess, flaws or otherwise, like where are you not connecting the dots, I guess.
Mm.
Um and where you need to kind of move your own self because it's actually not working. It could be like for your own self as well, right? Like it's not necessarily for everyone else. Like again, as someone who is DI, I do kind of view like where am I fucking up and fucking up my own life, um and as as a result fucking up everyone else's, right?
Right.
More like how do I fix myself and then have it like you know uh, work for everyone.
Mm.
um, so yeah, I do think that like um getting down to the core of it, like, which is why I was really interested in OP, because they get very detailed about like specific components of your life that maybe need to be readjusted or like focused on a little bit more. Because my worry was maybe like, what am I going in all in on? And like if I'm misreading it, um, if I feel like, oh, maybe I do need to be even like a bigger planner, just to kind of put things into context.
Mm.
If I have to be a bigger planner, maybe that's not the role that I need to like my center focus, because I already overplan things. So maybe dial it down on the planning. So my worry was that what if I view it upside down and I'm like constantly trying to, I guess in this, in going along with like my own personal functions, um, don't overplan, right? Like I think that's the general rule is like plan out your life, but for me it would be like don't overplan your life, you know,
Right. Yeah.
as they are. So like that was kind of another reason why I was like, okay, OP makes a lot more sense.
The whole becoming more chill would be our journey, like
Yeah.
chill from the inside out. Yeah, I loved something you said in a previous interview. Maybe it was my interview with you for the typing group. You said something about you being very particular with grammar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that you even got to the point like, why am I so like perfectionistic about this? So you would insert some incorrect things in your text messages to people just to make it more chill. That's so, that's like NI NI chill.
Yeah.
Let's plan some mistakes here so we are chill.
My chillness. Like it's like if I'm gonna make a mistake, I'm like, I will make a mistake. Like it's not
Here, exactly here.
not
Um,
letting it be as they are. Like it's just
do you
having to
do
dip my
that?
toe.
I mean, do you still do that or every once in a while?
It's hard not to. It's really hard not to. Like sometimes I'm just like, okay, I feel uncomfortable doing this because that feels imperfect or not correct,
Mhm.
and but it doesn't go against my values, right?
Right.
But
So you practice where it's possible.
yeah, for me it's breaking rules, and I think I mentioned in our last interview is like the idea of the red line, and for me like crossing that red line turns it a little gray, and over time it fades, and becomes non-existent. And just like looking back in retrospect about certain things that I did in my life and recognizing that there was no reason for there to be a red line, like there was no fucking reason, and there was. And like so for me just constantly going like, okay, now I will cross that red line, and eventually like yeah, it just it because for me it's like a bit of an annoyance with myself, because I'm like I focus so much like on that red line that
Mm.
like it took up time, it took up energy, it took up everything, and it was like what was the reason? Like I could have been doing so many other things,
Yeah.
um but I wasn't. Like I can give you an example, and this sounds like kind of weird, like kind of similar to my overreading example, but I when I was a kid, um I I used to like, because I like eating lemons, and this is really random, but like I like eating lemons, but for me I've never squirmed eating a lemon, for example. Like this is weird, but bear with me for a second.
Mhm.
Um and I just kind of went through life going like I will never squirm eating a lemon, and I would never allow myself to squirm eating anything sour because I'm like I've never done it. And it's like stupid things like that, because it's there's no reason for there to be a rule, like, but I've created a rule attached to it, and like it just became a rule. And then eventually I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna like, if I feel something sour I could squirm. um and it's like an analogy for like a much larger issue for me.
Mm.
But yeah, it's kind of like manifested in many components of my life, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense in my mind. And then like when I say it out loud, it's like, no, it sounds crazy.
No, not too crazy. It's okay. I'm yeah, trying to visualize. So yeah, back to the OI. I feel like I'm trying to just see your type, understand the gamma perspective, and I can say this, that I feel a difference when I'm talking to another quadra. Not necessarily if I'm watching someone like an interview or something. I'm not sure if I can tell the quadras from there. But when I talk to someone, so in our interview, I just felt like I don't think she is in my quadra.
Mm.
And yeah, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around this mm, gamma perspective now when I'm starting off with your quadra. But now that you have had your type for a month or 2 months,
Month
and
now.
you have compared yourself maybe to some similar types, do you have any famous types of, twin types, or have you talked to anyone who is your exact same type?
Yes, I talked to one girl in the community that is the one that you mentioned to me.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with her, and it was very odd because we were finishing each other's sentence. It was really, really weird, and um, we kind of do look alike, and it's just like
Yes, you do.
it's so weird. Like we're doing the same behavior, like the because I have a tendency to look up when I'm talking sometimes, and like certain other things, I was just kind of like recognizing and having someone understand what I'm saying without
Mm,
actually finishing my sentence because I have a hard time finishing my sentence.
yeah.
But like she was like, "Hey, I get it," and I'm like, "Ah, okay, this is great. This is cool." Um,
It's
it was
wonderful.
very it was great. Like I just felt like I had a translator. Um, without really translating, like it
Yeah,
was um uh, a breath of fresh air, I guess, just kind of recognizing that okay, I'm not the only person doing this. you know
exactly. Yeah. And you didn't have to translate yourself for once, like the whole word thing, gibberish thing that you mentioned in the beginning.
yeah,
Now someone can understand you just by, you just say the
for the first
idea.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah 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 it was very it was fascinating. I think like even I was trying to see if there were celebrities that were the same type. I
Mhm.
think Blaine is a similar type, just I think the modality is different.
Who?
um David Blaine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going through like the archive. Well, no, he's not in the archives. He's I think it was in one of the videos about glass lizards and activated demon functions or one of those videos.
Hmm.
And I found him, and like he does have the same not the 512, I can't remember which number, but it's just the modalities are different. Like we have
Hmm.
all the functions the same. And they don't have a full class on him, so I couldn't really delve too deep into it.
Hmm.
So I watched I think it was Eminem has the same animal stack. So I
Hmm.
was trying to understand the animal stack, and then I don't know who. Well, there are quite a few NIFIs. Um, so I was just watching different videos, and I also watched a couple of ESFP videos because like it'll be um, just to understand like what SE is doing
Hmm.
um, when it has FI. Um, and what else did I watch? I watched a couple of videos on double feminine. Um, yeah, so I was just kind of like going through and trying to recreate like some kind of individual that was just taking like the coins from like different types and
Yeah.
just recreate it so I kind of understand what I'm
Hmm.
doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It can be helpful. I did that too. I just studied two guys who are my same type. I think the female male coin is quite significant as well, though. So I'd love to do the same as you did, talk to someone of your, exact same type, 1024 type. That
Yeah,
would be really awesome. But
that,
yeah, you can see a lot of, similarities even with the guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Right.
I I don't know if I've spoken to any. No, I've not spoken to anyone or like seen any like guy who has the exact same type, like
Mhm.
with the modality and everything. So
So
I'd be curious how that would manifest like in a guy.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's different. I don't know. It's yeah. Talked about it with someone in the community. I think the male female coin still is the most significant one, honestly.
Okay.
Um
Experiences would be different. How you move around in the world is different.
yeah,
So
yeah,
factor.
it's a big one. Well, thank you so much, Farah, for coming in and sharing your thoughts and experiences. And I think it would be lovely to have you come on again in the future. I would love to, when you have been sitting on your type for a while and maybe you have even more examples or things you have been thinking about, or maybe in a panel, I don't know, with someone of your exact same type, who knows? um, I don't know where this channel is going. I just want to understand. That's my mission. Like, I want to understand the functions, the quadras, and get to know some awesome people and see what happens. So yeah, hopefully I will see you around in the community, and hopefully I will have you come back here.
Love that.
Yeah. So thanks.
Thank you.